In late February 2026, a series of preemptive airstrikes carried out by Israel against Iran's underground nuclear facilities, with intelligence and logistical support from the administration of President Donald Trump, ignited the most direct and intense conflict between Iran, the United States, and Israel since the 1980s tanker war. Shortly thereafter, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and other senior Iranian officials were killed in the airstrikes, and by April 2026, what had been predicted as a covert standoff had escalated into an open war of attrition with thousands of casualties. The flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz was severely threatened, and proxy forces such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen were drawn into the spiral of violence. Unlike conventional wars of the 20th century, which were typically decided by air superiority at sea and troop numbers, this confrontation reflects a new reality, a war of high-precision missiles, suicide drones, cyber warfare, and the anti-access/area denial A2/AD strategy that Iran has painstakingly built over more than 4 decades under sanctions. In this context, the central question is not merely who possesses the more powerful weapons, but whether an asymmetric power with a modest defense budget can inflict sufficient damage to force a superpower like the United States to the negotiating table. Iran's arsenal, from the aging yet formidable Shahab 3 ballistic missiles to the cheap but deadly Shahed 136 drones, is the answer. And to understand the current battlefield landscape, as well as potential scenarios in the near future, we need to analyze each type of weapon in detail, based on intelligence assessments, battlefield reports, and verified technical specifications. Ballistic missiles, the heart of Iran's deterrence doctrine. In any assessment of Iran's military strength, ballistic missiles always take center stage. Lacking a modern air force, with its aging F-14s unable to compete with the US F-35 or Israel's F-35I, Tehran has chosen to develop a massive missile arsenal as a strategic deterrent and long-range strike capability. Before the war broke out, Western intelligence communities estimated that Iran possessed between 2,500 and 3,500 ballistic missiles of various types, making it the country with the largest missile arsenal in the Middle East. This figure is no coincidence, but the result of a strategy spanning more than 3 decades, during which Iran persistently reverse-engineered designs from North Korea and the former Soviet Union, eventually mastering solid fuel technology, inertial and GPS guidance systems, and maneuverable re-entry vehicles. By April 2026, following intense airstrikes by the US and Israel targeting underground missile production facilities, approximately 70% of Iran's manufacturing infrastructure had been destroyed. However, thanks to its Missile City system, located deep underground, Tehran still had more than 1,000 ballistic missiles ready for launch. Among these, short-range missiles such as the Zulfiqar, a variant of the Fattah 110 series, have a range of 700 kilometers, carrying high-explosive warheads or cluster bombs weighing 500 to 700 kilograms, with a circular error probability, CEP, of less than 100 meters, thanks to a combination of inertial and GPS guidance. These missiles are designed for rapid response, with a launch preparation time of only about 5 minutes, thanks to the use of solid fuel, making them ideal for attacking US bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and the UAE. In the first week of the war, over 200 Zulfiqar missiles were launched, severely damaging the runway at Al Udeid Air Base, home to approximately 10,000 US troops, forcing F-35 squadrons to relocate to backup bases in Saudi Arabia. Additionally, older missiles such as the Shahab 1 and Shahab 2, which are copies of the Soviet Scud-B and Scud-C, though they have poor accuracy, a CEP of up to 300 meters, and use liquid fuel requiring longer preparation times, are available in large quantities, estimated at over 500 missiles, and were used in saturation strikes to overwhelm Patriot and Iron Dome batteries. According to leaked documents from the Pentagon, in the early days of the conflict, the hit rate of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles, even when intercepted, was only about 15%. but that figure was still sufficient to cause significant strategic damage. When it comes to longer ranges, Iran's medium-range ballistic missiles, MRBMs, are the primary threat to Israel, and distant bases such as Diego Garcia. The Shahab 3 series, with improved variants such as the Ghadar and Ahmad, has a range of 1,300 to 2,000 kilometers, carries a 1,200 kilogram warhead, and the Ahmad variant is equipped with a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, MARV, capable of evading Israel's Arrow 3 system. During the operation named True Promise 3 on March 15, 2026, Iran launched more than 50 Shahab 3 and Ahmad missiles directly at Israel's Dimona nuclear reactor, and approximately 20% of them penetrated the defense layers, causing a massive explosion that shook the region. Although the Israeli government denied significant damage, commercial satellite images showed a plume of black smoke rising from the surrounding area. Most notable is the appearance of the Sejjil missile, one of the few medium-range ballistic missiles in the world to use solid fuel for both stages. Weighing approximately 23 tons, with a range of 2,000 to 2,500 kilometers, a 1,500 kilogram warhead, and a CEP of just 50 to 100 meters, the Sejjil has been hailed by Iran as a game-changer because it can be launched with virtually no prior warning, unlike liquid-fueled missiles that require hours to refuel. However, due to high production costs, approximately $3 to $4 million per missile, and lengthy manufacturing times, Iran has used the Sejjil sparingly in this conflict, focusing on high-value strategic targets such as command centers and air bases. Additionally, the Khorramshahr 4 missile, which carries the largest warhead in Iran's arsenal, 1,800 kilograms, and has the potential to be equipped with multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, MIRVs, was also deployed, although the majority of these were intercepted in mid-air by US SM-6 missiles. The true turning point of the conflict, at least from a technological standpoint, was Iran's first-ever deployment of hypersonic missiles and hypersonic glide vehicles, HGVs, in actual combat conditions. The Khaybar-Shikan missile, with a range of 1,450 kilometers, a maneuverable warhead, a CEP of just 20 meters, and the ability to reduce radar signature thanks to its unique aerodynamic shape, was reported to have struck an aircraft hangar at Israel's Nevatim Air Base, home to F-35I squadrons. Even more formidable are the Fattah 1 and Fattah 2 series, true hypersonic gliders capable of speeds ranging from Mach 13 to Mach 15, with sudden in-flight maneuverability that makes them nearly impossible to intercept by existing defense systems such as THAAD or Arrow 3. An unconfirmed report from Israeli military sources claims that during an attack in early April 2026, a Fattah 1 struck an F-35 parked on the runway, but this information remains highly controversial. What is certain is that the emergence of hypersonic weapons has significantly altered the defense equation for the US and Israel, forcing them to allocate a significant portion of their budgets to developing new generation interceptor systems, while each Iranian missile launch imposes enormous financial pressure. It is estimated that each time Israel deploys the Arrow 3 system to intercept an Iranian MRBM, it costs approximately $3 million, not including radar operation and personnel costs. Cruise missiles, the stealthy low flyers. While ballistic missiles impress with their supersonic speeds and high trajectories, Iran's cruise missiles are feared for their sophistication and stealth. Flying at altitudes of just 50 to 100 meters above the ground, hugging the terrain, and using natural obstacles to evade radar, Iran's cruise missiles have been dubbed the poor man's stealth weapon. Before the war, Iran was estimated to possess between 300 and 500 cruise missiles of various types, primarily the Sumar series, a copy of the US Tomahawk cruise missile, developed by Iran after analyzing a missile that crashed in Ukraine in the 2000s. The Sumar series boasts an impressive range of 2,000 to 2,500 kilometers, carries a warhead weighing approximately 450 to 500 kilograms, and achieves extremely high accuracy, a CEP of just 10 to 20 meters, thanks to a guidance system combining GPS inertial navigation, and terrain-following sensors. The cost of each SUMAR missile is only about $1 to $2 million US, significantly cheaper than the US Tomahawk missile, approximately $3 to $5 million US. In the current conflict, Iran has primarily used cruise missiles for two missions: precision strikes against critical Israeli infrastructure, such as power plants and oil refineries, as well as attacks on US warships in the Gulf. A particularly notable incident occurred in mid-March 2026. A Hoveza cruise missile, an upgraded version of the SUMAR with enhanced solid fuel propulsion, struck the deck of the USS Eisenhower aircraft carrier, causing a small fire and forcing the ship to retreat to safe waters for 2 days for repairs. Although the Pentagon initially denied the damage, commercial reconnaissance photos showed a large black mark on the bow section of the deck. Additionally, the anti-ship variant of the Quds series, equipped with an electro-optical seeker and the capability to target moving vessels, has been widely used in attacks on commercial cargo convoys in the Strait of Hormuz, where a combined swarm of Quds 350 cruise missiles and suicide drones sank a large supertanker similar to the MV Ever Given, blocking this vital waterway for nearly a week. The success rate of Iranian cruise missiles in attacks against US warships is reported to be around 30%, a figure that is not high but sufficient to force Aegis-equipped destroyers to continuously fire SM-6 missiles, costing $4 million each to intercept them, while the production cost of each Iranian cruise missile is only half or a quarter of that amount. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, weapons of attrition. Perhaps no weapon better reflects Iran's military philosophy than unmanned aerial vehicles, particularly the Shahed series. With a production cost of just $20,000 to $50,000 per Shahed 136, Iran has created a suicide weapon capable of flying 1,500 to 2,500 kilometers, carrying a 30 to 50 kilogram warhead, and, most importantly, can be mass-produced at a rate of up to 1,000 units per month before its factories were bombed by the US. In war, drones are not only offensive tools, but also tools for wearing down the enemy. Every time Israel's Iron Dome fires a Tamir missile to intercept a Shahed 136, the cost reaches $50,000 to $100,000 US, 2 to 5 times the value of the target itself. And when Iran launches 300 drones simultaneously in a single attack, as it did on March 8, 2026, the cost equation becomes unsolvable. Israel and the US must spend tens of millions of US dollars on defense, while Iran spends only a few million US dollars on the attack. This imbalance is at the heart of the war of attrition strategy that Iran pursues. In addition to the Shahed 136, Iran also widely employs the Mohajer-6 drone, a larger, multi-role UAV with a wingspan of approximately 10 meters, a flight time of up to 12 hours, and the capability to carry 2 to 4 precision-guided missiles, each weighing about 20 kilograms. Priced at around $1 to $2 million each, the Mohajer-6 not only carries out reconnaissance missions, but also directly participates in attacks, particularly in raids on US logistics convoys in Iraq and Syria. Iranian proxy forces such as Hezbollah and the Houthis have also been supplied with export versions of these drones and have used them to sink at least one cargo ship in the Red Sea and attack Saudi Arabian bases. Notably, despite the US Epic Fury campaign aimed at destroying Iran's drone production facilities, which was claimed to have destroyed 80% of its capacity, recent intelligence reports indicate that Iran has managed to maintain several black sites deep underground, where it continues to produce drones at reduced capacity, but still sufficient to maintain pressure on the front lines. Air defense systems, a shield cracking. While Iran's offensive arsenal is designed to inflict damage on enemies from a distance, its air defense systems are what protect Tehran's nuclear facilities and command centers from retaliatory airstrikes. The backbone of this system is the Bavar 373, a long-range air defense system developed by Iran, believed to be on par with or even superior to Russia's S-400. Equipped with an active electronically scanned array, AESA, radar capable of detecting targets at a range of 300 kilometers, and the Shahed 4B missile, with a range of 200 to 300 kilometers. The Bavar 373 is expected to create a no-fly zone for US and Israeli aircraft. In fact, Iran claimed to have shot down 6 F-35s in the first weeks of the war, although both the US and Israel have denied this, and independent evidence remains scarce. What is certain is that alongside the Russian-supplied S-300PM U-2 systems, though significantly damaged in the initial attacks, along with medium-range systems such as the 3rd Khordad, notably responsible for shooting down a US Global Hawk drone in 2019, and the Talash/Arman, Iran has established a fairly dense, multi-layered defense network. However, the superior technology of the US and Israel quickly exposed these vulnerabilities. The ARRW hypersonic missiles, with a range of over 1,600 kilometers and a speed of Mach 20, launched from B-52 bombers off the coast, struck the Bavar 373 radars with such speed and trajectory that Iran's defense systems could not react in time. Additionally, electronic warfare conducted by EA-18G Growler aircraft caused severe jamming, blinding radars, and severing communications between launch pads. As a result, within the first 2 weeks of the war, over 90% of Iran's long-range air defense radars were neutralized, paving the way for precision airstrikes on missile factories and IRGC command centers. Nevertheless, short-range and mobile systems continued to operate, and Iran's overall air defense interception rate against conventional targets, such as drones and cruise missiles, remained around 85%. However, against stealth and hypersonic weapons, that figure was virtually zero. Asymmetric naval warfare in the Strait of Hormuz. The economic front unable to compete directly with the US Navy's powerful aircraft carrier fleet, Iran has shifted to an asymmetric naval strategy based on numbers, speed, and swarm tactics. More than 1,000 armed speedboats, each about 17 meters long, capable of speeds up to 70 kilometers per hour, equipped with small anti-ship missiles or heavy machine guns, and costing only $1 to $3 million each, a pittance compared to the US's Aegis destroyers, which cost billions of dollars. These small vessels operate in large formations, charging toward US warships, firing missiles, and retreating, creating chaos on radar screens and forcing defense systems to operate at full capacity. But the greatest threat does not lie in the small vessels themselves, but in the ability to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's crude oil passes daily. Iran has deployed hundreds of smart mines, sound and magnetically activated, along the shipping lanes, and in March 2026 alone, 2 US supply ships struck mines and were sunk, forcing the US Navy to divert significant resources to mine clearance rather than offensive operations. Additionally, hypersonic anti-ship missiles with a range of 300 kilometers, such as the Khalij Fars, had been deployed along the coastline, creating a no-go zone for large warships. Iran's strategy is very clear. They don't need to sink the entire US Fifth Fleet. They just need to make shipping oil through the Strait of Hormuz too risky and too costly, causing global oil prices to skyrocket, thereby putting pressure on Western economies and forcing them to negotiate. The strategic balance and future scenarios. Looking at Iran's entire arsenal, from thousands of ballistic and cruise missiles, tens of thousands of drones, to a large fleet of small vessels and a dense air defense network, we see a consistent strategic picture. Iran does not seek to defeat the US or Israel in a decisive battle, but rather to make war so painful, so protracted, and so costly that the adversary cannot sustain it to the end. These weapons are designed to fulfill 3 core functions: deterrence, threatening the enemy's cities and bases; retaliation, launching massive salvos to overwhelm defenses; and denial of access, sealing off the Strait of Hormuz. By April 2026, this strategy had achieved some measure of success. Iran had inflicted significant casualties and property damage on the US and Israel, forcing them to devote massive resources to defense, and most importantly, had brought both sides to the negotiating table for a ceasefire in Pakistan. However, the superior technology of the United States and Israel, hypersonic missiles, stealth aircraft, cyber warfare, and laser weapons currently in the testing phase, has gradually eroded Tehran's advantage. Most of Iran's missile and drone production facilities have been destroyed, its air defense radars have been neutralized, and the Iranian economy is under unprecedented pressure as oil revenues have dropped by more than 50% due to sanctions and transportation disruptions. Two main scenarios are possible. First, if ceasefire negotiations succeed, Iran will retain some of its missile and drone capabilities while continuing to rely on proxy forces to exert long-term pressure. Second, if the war continues, the US and Israel may concentrate all resources to completely destroy the underground missile cities, and if successful, the Tehran regime could face the risk of collapse. The biggest unknown remains the nuclear program. If Iran has achieved the capability to enrich uranium to 90%, weapons grade, the strategic balance will shift completely, as a miniaturized nuclear bomb could be mounted on the warhead of a hypersonic Fattah 2 missile, creating a threat that even the US cannot ignore. The final lesson from this conflict is clear. In the 21st century, a nation under sanctions with a modest military budget can still create a formidable asymmetric power if it combines technological ingenuity, swarm tactics, and a willingness to accept sacrifice. But at the same time, no strategy is invincible against a superpower with virtually unlimited resources and superior technology. Peace, if it comes, will not be the result of a decisive military victory, but rather the result of the economic and moral exhaustion of all parties. And once again, diplomacy is the only thing that can put an end to the cycle of violence. In the modern world, military power lies not only in weapons, but also in strategy and deterrence. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the secrets behind military superpowers and the changes shaping the world order.